Welcome back to JW Discussions. My name is Vern, and today we will be talking about my book of Bible stories. Now, if you were a Jehovah's Witness at one time, you probably remember that you originally learned everything through the Bible book of stories. Now, I came in as a convert, and I came in when I was about 18 years old. And the people that brought me in had little kids teaching me the Bible stories book. And I remember going to their house, and there'd be a couple of kids, small kids. Maybe they were, 12 or something, 13 maybe, 14 at the oldest. And they would sit around and teach me the Bible stories book. And I teach me all about the Bible and the religion through those stories. Now, when I came in, I knew nothing. I've never picked a Bible up in my life, so this was all brand new for me, and I learned the Bible. And then eventually, once you get through the Bible stories book, we went to the Live Forever book. It was kind of another pictorial book, took it a step further. So today, they're teaching Jehovah's Witnesses through those two little kids, Caleb and Sophie. And we show a snapshot of them. So there's a lot of creators online like myself that are out there helping the children of Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses as a deprogramming tool using these stories. Now, we've covered programs where to brainwash someone, the best time to do it is between the age of 1 and 6. And if you think about children growing up in the Watchtower, they are brainwashed basically with the Bible stories book. Now myself, I was guilty of that. And in them days we had cassette tapes, and I bought the cassette tapes from the Watchtower. And I'd put a cassette tape on each night for my children as they went to sleep. So my children were programmed with the Bible stories book. So one of the best techniques to deprogram someone who's been programmed is to use the same tool. So if we use the same tool, the brain's already familiar with the tool, this programming tool. So we use the same programming tool to deprogram our minds from the Watchtower, because the Bible stories book was one of the biggest programming tools of its day. Now, of course, the Watchtower is using these cartoons of Caleb and Sophie, and that's why the creators are all over this stuff to protect the children. So I'm going to start perhaps a little series, I'm not sure, but we're going to go through the Bible Stories book a little bit. And I'm going to show you my version of the Bible Stories book. We'll replay this theme here, and I'll take the music off. Where am I here? I'll just get her going here. Okay. So when I think of the Bible Stories book, I think of some of these pictures that are going to come up here in a second. So Trump, I'm not sure what that one was about, but I found out on the internet. So here's the first one, right here, Creative Days. Now, I wanted to, first of all, before we get into the Creative Days, we're going to flip over to jw.org here, and this is what's on the website today. What a dark, just a side note, what a dark picture, to throw on your website, an economy that works for all. God's kingdom has a solution. So they show the dark economy, and bang, God's kingdom has a solution. This is on their website today. A better world is near. Well, they show Norway. It's a better world, I guess. Norway canceled them as a religion. But this is a picture from Norway. And is the truth important anymore? They're proclaiming that, and will the earth be destroyed? So what a gloom, Watchtower front. But anyways, if we plug in Bible stories right on the Watchtower, up comes this. And it says, see Bible stories. Now we go down here, right here, my book of Bible stories. This is what I wanted to show you. It says this is a book of true stories. So the very first thing that we're going to show is that it's not a book of true stories. In fact, there's a lot of stories in there that are based on mythology. And now they're in the book, the Bible book, the canon that we call it today. But there's a lot of stories even that Jehovah's Witnesses have left out. And we're going to get into that a little bit. as we go through and correct some of the Bible stories. But we're not going to do that all today. But I just want to point out they call it a book of true stories. Well, how can we go back to this account here? And we're going to open up this here. I didn't pause it, I guess. And we're going to get right into this section here. How can this creation account be true? How can things happen in 6 days? Or Jehovah's Witnesses even throw into the narrative, they do a 7 times 7 formula and they make each day 49,000 years. But that all that math does not work. So we got to ask ourselves, how do we fix this? Well, we have to fix it. There's many creators that have went online and fixed this. One that comes to mind is The Truth Hurts. And he covered all about the dinosaurs and all about these stories. And we have to keep breaking apart these narratives because it's these narratives that are false. Now we're going to carry on. And this one, the Noah's Ark one. Well, how are you going to get all of the DNA of everything on Earth by walking two animals on, as this narrative points out? It didn't happen. Perhaps if we looked at the narrative from the Anunnaki story, where there were perhaps DNA that was transferred over on a boat. That makes more sense. You could get more of the animals in. That narrative makes more sense. Some of that stuff, I think, should be explored. Let's carry on here and see where we go next. Okay, the story of Moses down the river. Well, did that really happen? Was it all true? I don't know. It's a myth, really. And I think if you really research this farther, a lot of these stories are myths. And they go way back before the Bible, before the Jewish system. It goes back to the Canaanites. And it goes back to Sumerian mythology, a lot of these stories. But what can we get from these stories? I think all the stories are valuable. For instance, this one about Moses. How many of us feel like we've been thrown into the reeds and we're just floating down a river aimlessly? You know, isn't that how we feel when we get out of the Watchtower organization? We feel a bit like Moses, all alone, so he grows up and we get out and we're in the world, and we have to deal with all that. But yeah, you could take this, and there's definitely a different narrative we can throw behind all these stories and examples, modern day examples to the XJW community. Now, here's a good one, the golden calf. Now, what happened yesterday seems to happen today, and all those poor Jehovah's Witnesses are worshiping the golden calf. Now, the golden calf of our day is the 9 men at the Watchtower. They're the golden calf. Whatever comes out of their mouth is golden, and it has from God. And everyone is worshiping those men. They're worshiping idols. It's idol worship. And the Watchtower is very good at setting up all kinds of altars all over the world. They have a branch office. It's an altar to the idol worship, to the 9 men of the governing body. And they have these branch offices. And then they have small altars. They have these little kingdom halls, and those are altars. And each of those altars worship the 9 men, the golden calf. So that's how we rephase that narrative, and we keep going here. And, this is where the Watchtower is stuck. Now, here's another good one. Now, we look at the Egyptians here. They're like the Watchtower leaders, the 9 men, and they're using the elders, the circuit overseers, the district overseers. They placed them in a higher position if you have an elder qualification. You're in Jesus' hands, according to them. You're one of the stars. So they get to beat the slaves and beat them silly. And us, as the rank and file that's in the Watchtower, we were beat silly through all kinds of elders' meetings. We were abused. Children were abused physically. So what we see in the picture here actually happened to some of the children in this organization. And this is done by the 9 men worshiping the golden calf, the high up. So we carry on here, and why do we keep doing all of this? Well, we keep doing it because of this false promise of this facade, this paradise. So they paint this paradise picture. It's a fictional picture. There is absolutely no scriptures in the New Testament to support this. There are no scriptures that Jesus ever said to support any of this. Jesus did not support a kingdom on earth. He supported a kingdom in heaven. So we understand as XJWs that this is completely a fictional story painted as real. And this is what confuses the rank and file. And it keeps them going, and they take the beatings and the whippings because they think it's going to be a paradise. Now, if you're like us and you stand up and you say, this is wrong, this is all wrong, the shunning is wrong, dying because of their blood doctrine is wrong, ignoring family members and not loving people is wrong. We know that's all wrong. And child abuse is the most abhorrent thing on this earth. So we make a stand, and we stand up to them. And we stand up because they want worship. They want exclusive devotion. And we say no. And we stand there and we say no. It's not right. So what happens? We get thrown out. We get thrown in to the fiery furnace. And all of the XJWs have been thrown into a fiery furnace to burn forever because they're afraid of us. And that's how they deal with us. But we go back to the fiery furnace. I want to point this out. There's someone else in there with us. And a lot of us, we don't know what it is, but maybe we don't make a video for a few days, and then all of a sudden something spurs us on. And it's like someone's in here with us in this fiery furnace. And some call it the Holy Spirit, and some call it angels, and some call it God, and some call it Jesus' Spirit. I don't know what it is, but we're not alone. And we're here together doing all of these things. So let's carry on. The next point that I want to bring out is this. This is one of the most fascinating parts of the Bible, and the Jehovah's Witnesses don't talk about it. It's the three wise men. Where did the three wise men come from? Well, they came from, obviously, from Abraham. The 12 tribes spread over all of the earth. There were many gods. If you really research this, there were other gods. And these guys came from a far-off land, not under the Jewish God, Jehovah. They were under another god, perhaps, a mini-god. But they worshiped the true God, the Elohim. And they came to see the Redeemer. You see, there's a whole story there. And then we even go further on this story. And we go here to the star. Now we're getting into astrology, and the Jehovah's Witnesses have made as demonized astrology. They don't talk about it, but yet here it is in the Bible. So this is what we want to do, is research more of this, find out more of what the wise men were about. Who were they? Where did they come from? And how did they follow a star to find baby Jesus? So then we go further in the narrative, and the baby Jesus comes along as prophesied, and the scriptures talk about it, but yet then he disappears. He had to leave the scene until he was 12 years old. Why? Because King Herod wanted to destroy him. King Herod was like the Watchtower. The Watchtower is just like King Herod. The Watchtower wants to destroy anybody that's going to talk about real truth, talk about Jesus, talk about the way, the life, the truth. You see, the Watchtower does not like that, because the Watchtower wants you to worship the golden calf, which is the Elders Book, which is the Watchtower, all of the bound volumes, which boils down to the 9 men sitting there in New York. Those are the idols, and those are the ones that every Watchtower member around the earth bow down to. So Jesus, not like that. He left the scene with his parents at the direction of an angel, and they went to somewhere in Egypt and perhaps other places around the world. And then he came back. He was 12 years old. Do the Pharisees look happy? Look at them. Those Pharisees don't look too happy. I think Jesus is teaching those Pharisees a lesson or two about what he knows. And the Pharisees, right off the bat, Jesus was not in with them. And he was learning about how disgusting they are. And he knew that he had to deal with them sooner or later. So we carry on in the narrative, and we get to the time that Jesus is baptized. Now we hear nothing more of Jesus. What else happened with Jesus? Did Jesus get married? Did he have a wife? Did he have children? You see, there's some other narratives that they say are hidden. They call it Gnostic Jesus, and even that Jesus went to India. And I think there's so much about Jesus that we don't know, but yet the history right now shows it to us in plain sight. All we have to do is wake up a bit, and then we can take a look at this clearly and see everything that has been happening in history. Now, I may be off on a few things, but this is my take on it. And Jesus, so John comes into the picture. We know more about John the Baptist, and he baptizes Jesus, and then it all starts. Then Jesus comes in and he cleans house. He completely cleans house, turning over money tables, kicking out these Pharisees, dealing with these Pharisees, and realizing that these churches of his time were a cave of robbers. Like that, this is where they're robbing everyone, just like in our time. So we can draw a parallel. We can see that Jesus was the first apostate that we follow, and he was against the religion of his day. He realized that they were raping people for money every day. The Watchtower, they have raised their monthly requirement from publishers in the US to $10.75 per person. A lot of people don't know that, but that's $13 million a month extra that they need to fight lawsuits. Well, Jesus was against that kind of stuff. He was against child abuse. He was against any of these things. And in fact, Jehovah's Witnesses have taken out of the Bible a very important lesson about Jesus. And Jesus taught us, whoever casts the first stone, if you're not a sinner. If you're not a sinner, cast the first stone at the prostitute. You remember the story? Well, they pulled that out of the Bible. And Jesus gave the Pharisees a lesson there. He says, if you're not a sinner, cast it. Stone her. They wanted to stone the prostitute. And Jesus says, if any of you guys don't sin, cast the first stone. And they all walked away because they're all sinners. They know that. The Bible shows us that we are all imperfect people. We're all different and we all make mistakes. But Jehovah's Witnesses try to proclaim that the 9 men in New York are perfect and that they are directed by God Jehovah, they call God. So there's a whole learning here. Now, did Jesus die on a stake? That's the next thing. Well, history shows that Jesus died on a cross. The scriptures show that Philip looked for 2 holes and there was evidence that he died on a cross. He had his hands held out. So now let's carry on in the narrative and look at the next part here. Jesus dies. Now he dies here, and if you take a look, there was other evildoers beside them. Now, if we look at the history here, Jesus got off the cross in 6 hours, and they didn't break his legs. So there's evidence that Jesus perhaps was not dead, that he lived, and that's why he went to India and raised a family, and there is evidence there. We covered that with Paul Wallace, and Paul Wallace has done a lot of research on the Gnostic Jesus. Now, Paul Wallace was a Christian, just like us, believing in the canon, and he even went to school and studied it and proclaimed it, and then he started to see holes, and he's seen that the books were stitched together. So this is why I believe we need a new narrative. Jesus' legs weren't broken. There's Joseph Arimaeus was the one who provided the burial place. And there's evidence that Joseph Arimaeus was actually a rich trader, a very prosperous Jewish person, and he was into metals. And metals was like warplanes in our day. It was like armaments. And so the governments really listened to them. And he said, no, let's get Jesus off the cross. 6 hours, that's enough. And they drugged Jesus. They gave him a drug, and it looked like he died. They pierced him, but they did not break his legs. So this is a whole interesting story, and it may be that Jesus never actually died. He kept walking the earth. Joseph Arimaeus may have transferred him. So there's a whole nother narrative there, and I think we need to look at this. I think we need to explore these narratives and get a fuller picture. And that's what we're doing. A lot of the creators online, I want to give a shout out to Ryan. Ryan's doing an excellent job, Ryan from Cultastic. And she's talking about the Bible stories and how she's seeing a different narrative. So as we wake up as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we were programmed with this book. So we have to look at it now and share with the audience the different narrative, because there definitely is a different narrative. So we carry on with Jesus. He may not have ever died. Think of that. But if we go with the canon, he did die, he's in heaven. Eventually people die. Jesus would have died, but let's go back. He's in heaven. We have that narrative. The governing body, they claim to be contact with Jehovah. Jehovah. We talk to Jehovah. We're Jehovah's Witnesses. You see, it's all Jehovah. There's no Jesus in there. In fact, they diminish Jesus to an archangel over some scripture. They lessen his title to an archangel. So there's no Jesus in here anymore. They've taken Jesus off the watchtower. It's all Jehovah. Jehovah is their name, their God. And when you think of it, Jehovah's Witnesses do live up to the name of Jehovah. Jehovah was a jealous God. Jehovah killed women and children. Jehovah didn't care. Jehovah's Witnesses kill women and children today with their blood doctrine. Women and children die, martyr themselves by standing up for the watchtower in courts all over the land. And it's sad that they worship these 9 men. So Jehovah's Witnesses do not worship Jesus here in the picture that they have in their Bible Stories book. For a lot of us ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we believe Jesus is actually ruling right now. We believe that Jesus is in control and directing the governments to take down the watchtower. That's what I believe. So I'm going to carry forth what's next. Here, the towers of Jericho. So there we are. Let's get me off the picture. And there's all the Jehovah's Witnesses there blowing their horns. We're all on the internet. We're sounding our horns. We're marching around the watchtower, and we're shouting, and together we're smashing our glasses, blowing our horns, smashing our jars, and the watchtower is crumbling, folks. It is crumbling. And that's what I get from the lesson of Jericho. If you are not on God's side and you think you got a watchtower and this strong fortress of a religion, I'm sorry, folks, it is going to crumble. And it's crumbling right now. Bricks are knocked out. The watchtower's in financial trouble. They're going to their members for more money. They don't think it's tithing. It's just a monthly membership fee. We need more money. We need your estates. We need more donations. And they have, on the Bible Stories, they have the little Caleb and their little cartoon characters asking for their piggy banks. They want the children's piggy banks. And that's how disgusting the watchtower's become. And that's why the watchtower's crumbling. It's like the city of Jericho. So, folks, that's kind of my take on the watchtower, and that's my take on the Bible Stories book. Now, this was just an overview. I think it would be very important for all of us to keep doing what we're doing and keep breaking this down. And right from the Bible Stories book. Now, we had a chat with Joe and Fran the other night, and they were programmed through the Bible Stories book. They programmed their children with the Bible Stories book. So to build a really good deprogramming tool, we do it through the Bible Stories book, because that's how we were programmed. So that's my 2 bits for today, folks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Keep living your life with love. Bye for now.